gotta be on a raked steak. um, Director, colleague, mentor, teacher, friend, and so much more. We are here to celebrate our dear Lou Rackoff. We're here on the stage of Macbeth, which was to be his last play at Southern Miss, and a place to really gather today to celebrate. Each of us had individual relationships with Lou. He made each of us feel so special and so valued. He noticed our strengths, and he encouraged us when we were worried. And at the heart of his empowerment of others was art. When Lou asked, "How are you?" he really meant it, and he listened, and then he usually followed with a story of his own that really showed you his empathy and his support of you. He's also so lighthearted. I keep coming back to my own kind of grouping of memories where I'm in the TAD with my children, and he would always say, "Oh, there's our next scholarship student." Life, all great art is gratitude. Let's celebrate the gratitude that Lou offered each of us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Boyd, and I find myself holding a spot, holding a place, in the stead of hundreds of artists across multiple generations that Lou affected and empowered and cultivated through his work. And any of us could speak about his passion, his hunger for collaboration, his seemingly boundless energy and fervor, and his vigor when he would get a hold of a story. But mostly we would speak of his humanity. And it's his humanity, which I think will cut across everything that everyone offers today. It's impossible to separate speaking about Lou as a director from Lou as a person. For me, I cut my teeth in this institution and in this building and in this room through some very, very, very hard lessons. And Lou was there as my chair and a mentor, as a teacher, as a colleague, and as a director. I knew how to put up a show when I came here. I could organize things and could get actors to kind of hit marks and find light and do all that stuff. But I certainly didn't know how to direct. To mind that was the truth when, in this room, I was doing Importance of Being Earnest back in 2000. And we were in the SAT, and I was deep into a rehearsal process that we did. Mess. It was a mess. And Lou, God bless him, came in to just take a mess. And he said, "Well, you can't forget that all of these are love stories." And I was like, "Oh, that's so right." I was just going for the bits. I was going for the humor. And I had this couple that were playing Chasuble Imprisonment. They weren't even in the play. I mean, they were there. They were. And that's what Lou taught me in that moment and continued to reiterate to me and through his own example the entire time that I was here. Being at a production with Lou at the helm was adventurous. And in the ways that you always idealized when you got into this business. When you're cutting your teeth and you're taking those classes and you're like, maybe this is what I want to do, right? And this shared experience in this living form. And wherever you were collaborating on a production with Lou, you were contributing to something beyond yourself, beyond the show even, which is always the goal of theater, and you certainly hear it, and you've maybe even said it, but with Lou, man, you could feel it, right? Like, you could feel it. And that goes to his humanity. And if you were lucky, you got to do it again with Lou, and again with Lou. And I did twice on this stage, God bless him. Put me in 2 shows that I didn't think I had any business doing, in roles I didn't have any preparation for doing. And it's because Lou had a way of making you believe in yourself beyond what you thought you were capable of believing. And you were nurtured along that way. And you were made to feel safe. And I was doing a little research for this, found an old article when Lou was leaving the North Carolina Shakespeare Festival, I think to come here. And a longtime collaborator, Alan Edwards, put it this way. The thing about Lou is he knows me better, or he knows more about me than I do. He knows my instincts, he respects me, and I feel safe. That's the greatest gift a director can give an actor. But I would argue a person can give another person. And Lou did that to every person he came in contact with. You felt safe. We constantly strive for risk in this business, and we encourage it, and we ask people to harness it, but we don't often know exactly how to make them feel safe enough to do it. And Lou did it without effort because of his humanity. And you can see that same humanity in the work that he did with his students. And you can see it in how they are talking about Lou, whether or not they were an actor that got to work with him, or a fight director that got to work with him, or a designer, or one of his MFAs in directing, or really anybody that took any of his directing classes, right? You can see that footprint. You can see those gentle nudges that Lou had been giving them, now being done in their work. And it reminds me of a quote from Emerson. The creation of 1,000 forests lies in one acorn. And if you'll just go with me on this metaphor, if you please, because Lou is the acorn. And if you also let me borrow one word from this play, which is my favorite learned Shakespeare word. Lou created forests that are multitudinous. The reach of his legacy is going to affect that next group of hundreds of artists across multiple generations. Thank you, Lou.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right, noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on. Never saw things going on so right. Noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my heart may fly. Blue days, all of them gone. Nothing but blue skies from now on. Biddy-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Like old times, having you to walk with seems like old times, having you to talk with,
and it's still a thrill just to have my arms around you.
Still the thrill that it was the day I found you seems like old times. Dinner dates and flowers seems like old times. Staying up for hours.
Hi, I'm Grace Bronner. I'm currently a senior and also this past year's APO president. I've been doing theater since about the 3rd grade, so it just so happens that I've had many different theater teachers and directors over the years. No offense to those current teachers of mine here today, but none have been as impactful as Papa Lou. I asked him if he could be a reference for me last summer in applying to be a camp counselor. He, of course, said yes, and I didn't think much of it until he passed away. I asked one of my camp directors, who is a USM theater alumni, if I could get a copy of the form he filled out about me. Reading it made me, yes, a little sad, but mostly so grateful I got to learn from such an amazing person. He was capable of seeing the best in every person he taught by giving opportunities to those who may not have gotten one yet, seeing potential that we may not see in ourselves, and pushing us to focus on the positivity in all of our projects. I had the absolute pleasure of being in Once in a Lifetime in 2021. This was my junior year and also happened to be my first main stage production. I had, at the time, a lot of anger, about not getting cast previously, and it was affecting my motivation in theater and made me question if I was good enough. I think quite a lot of us can relate to that feeling when things just aren't going how we expected them to. Once in a Lifetime was a light in my life for many reasons, but mainly because it relit the passion for theater I had momentarily forgotten about. Lou was a driving force in this. Before one of our performances, he went around and talked to each of the actors for a moment. He reminded me of my light and told me that he cast me as Mrs. Walker because of the warmth that I bring into a room. I had forgotten what makes me special, but Lou was able to see it behind all of my self-doubt, and he put me in a role that brought positivity to not only myself, but to the audience who got to see that production. Especially to Craig, whose favorite moment was my little dance while Katie Borum sang Boots. After that production, I became more invested in improving my outlook on seemingly frustrating situations because you never know how positive of an experience it could turn out being. After all, it was Lou reminding me of my warmth that made my warmth come out of hiding. Once in a Lifetime was also during a weird time in all of our lives because it was at the end of COVID lockdown, but COVID was still lurking around every corner. So everyone was under a lot of stress on top of that normal stress that you have as a college student. I shared the story in advanced directing the other day, so I thought I'd share it here too. There was one night during Once in a Lifetime where the rehearsal was quite honestly lacking energy, focus, and altogether was not that great. Lou went off. he raised his voice at us and did that thing where he pushes the glasses on the top of his head and shaking it in disappointment. In the book we're reading in Advanced Directing, Notes on Directing, tip number 124 says, don't lose your cool. And oh, did he lose his cool that day. We came in the next day to Lou saying something along the lines of, I shouldn't have yelled, but everything I said is still true, and I'm still very disappointed. Acknowledging that while he should have given us our notes in a calmer manner, things were stressful, and sometimes you do just have to lose your cool. I don't think he was disappointed because he felt we had failed him in some sort of way, but because he knew how much more that we were capable of. The next rehearsal was way better, and he never lost his cool again throughout that process. But looking back, I truly think we needed it that one time. It reminded us of how much Lou truly cared about the work we were doing in rehearsals. He cared so much that his anger got the better of him when he witnessed us not giving our full potential. Even as in his frustration, he was focusing on the good he knew we could achieve but might not have seen in that moment. Not only did Lou have an immense experience in directing and stage managing, but he was incredibly humble about his past work, especially during class. As we all know, he was an incredible storyteller. He used stories from his past work to teach lessons in the directing class, but he wasn't using them to brag or anything, but to connect lessons of directing with real-life experiences. There was one day he was telling us about the Pirates of Penzaz, but he wouldn't mention some of the bigger named people he was working with. I think that day was something about seeing the potential in actors and auditions and encouraging bold choices that can always be brought down a level. This actor he wouldn't mention had made some big acting choice and because of it got cast. Not because Lou wanted to use the big choice made in the show, but because he was able to see the potential in the actor to explore the role in full. He wouldn't tell us who it was, though. Someone in our class pulled out their phone and did a Google search and ended up finding the playbill with the entire cast and crew in it for the production. I don't even remember the actor we were trying to look for, but it was just a really funny moment when Lou was trying to either be humble or mysterious in some way, and the internet gave us everything we wanted to know. He ended up saying he didn't even know that you could find all of this information on Google about him. But this moment just always stays with me. We laughed a bunch during that time. It was just really fun. Seeing Lou's reaction and hearing how easily we found the details of his work, and knowing afterwards that the details didn't matter because anyone could have been a part of that story and it still would have gotten across the lesson. While I'm mostly known as an actor, I love directing, and Lou was a big influence in that realization. He showed me that I am more than capable of being an amazing director, and his feedback in our directing class made me realize that potential. I decided to go a little bit out of the box with one of my Tally's Folly scenes, Because not only did I want the challenge, but I wanted to try and do something that Lou had maybe never seen. As we all know, this is a hard task because Lou probably saw way too many Tally's Folly scenes in his time at USM. I did, in fact, succeed in creating something he had never seen, but it was only because I felt safe and supported in making such choices for his class. Lou always went out of his way to focus on the positives of our projects and encourage us to make bold choices, supported by the text, of course. He used the word lovely in my feedback a total of 4 times. Lovely cutting of the script, lovely changes, found a lovely moment. The ending was also lovely. I didn't notice this repetition until I looked back at his feedback to write this speech. I couldn't have chosen a better word myself to describe Lou. He was a lovely person to get to learn from, be directed by, and get to know. He was lovely not only because of how kind he was, but also because he said Hollywood was calling every time his diabetic device went off in class. Again, shaking his head and pushing his glasses up when he was tired or stressed. And he was able to command a room not by force, but because every word he said drew you in. Going back to that letter of recommendation he wrote me, he said, she flourishes in a collaborative environment. And not only did he create an environment where it was possible to flourish, but one where it was almost impossible not to. I think he was a grand example of how a professor and director can encourage that flourishing, even when we may not see it in ourselves. We love you, Papa Lou.
Case, and they will be used. Let me just, these are my bowling shoes. And I wore them because Lou loved them. I kept them in my office and often bowled on Thursday nights, and I brought my equipment from my office. But they're my bowling shoes, and I forgot my other dress shoes, so I thought, why not? I've been asked to talk about Lou as a colleague, how he interacted with the faculty and staff, with all of us. A bit of a warning, I will digress. I will go off on other areas. If you've taken a class with me, as many of the students did, you know that I do digress a lot. As Nacho Libre once said, it's for fun. But I must admit that it's very hard for me to speak about Lou in this sense. Yeah, we worked together. We worked very hard together for many years. But I feel that while he was a colleague of mine, more so he was a friend. So I'll try to stay on task, but I guarantee you I won't. I will digress. Let me start by saying how incredibly hard it was to try to condense everything that Lou and I had together into a however long this takes speech. I struggled, didn't know what to write down, how to keep it short, what I would do to encapsulate what I had with my colleague, my friend. So last night I woke up in the middle of the night, started jotting things down on an envelope from a bill. 2 bills, and I could not stop writing. I was scared. This is going to go on forever. It won't. This is big writing, so that I can see it, and I don't need to use my glasses. 16 years ago, I was freelancing in San Diego and Los Angeles. Freelancing, if you've ever done it, can be feast or famine. I hit a famine. I wanted to teach at this level, though. I've been passionate about it for many, many years. And I applied for a visiting professor gig here at USM. Long story short, here at this part, I was contacted by Lou in November of 2007 about coming to campus for an interview. The voice on the phone instantly gave me a sense of hope and a welcoming feeling. I just talked to him for a few minutes, and I got this feeling. Well, they flew me in, and the instant I got off the plane, I saw and knew the person standing in front of me in the gray sport coat was Lou. I put the face with the voice, and it was unmistakable that it was Lou. From the first handshake I had with him, I knew I had made a friend. Even if I didn't get the gig, I had a friend. Little did I know at that time how much of a friend I would have in Lou. I'm good. Obviously, it panned out, and I've been here for 16 years, and Lou was a huge, huge part of that longevity. When I took the job, Lou and Beth welcomed me to New Year's Eve dinner. I had been here for about 2 days, and I knew I had made the right choice. The definition of a colleague in the Oxford Dictionary is a person who works with someone, especially in a profession. And the Cambridge University Press and Assessment, colleague is defined as one of a group of people who work together. Well, we certainly did work together, and we worked very, very hard. When I came in, Lou was the chair of the Department of Theater and Dance at that time. Of course, we've gone through several changes, and we are now a program. But if you've ever worked in theater, you know that you become part of a family. As dysfunctional as it may be, we are and were a family. I affectionately called him Papa Lou. It seemed to fit, and it stuck. He's been Papa Lou. As a colleague, Lou did work side by side with all of us. He was appreciated, respected by his colleagues, and we appreciated and respected him. Not only with the theater and dance program at the time, but the entire university. Other professors in other areas, other departments, chairs, the deans, the provosts, the presidents. He knew them all, and he was respected and appreciated by all of them. He worked his butt off. Within the theater department at the time, he was so much more. A colleague, the term colleague to me seems kind of minimal, stuffy. It's because of who we are as colleagues, as friends, and as family in theater. Again, yes, he did the incredibly hard work to support his colleagues, and in this sense, he fought for the department. He collaborated on the business end of what we do. So there, he was a colleague. Lou was chair for so many years, even taking on an extra year after he stepped down. But he did it for the department, for the colleagues. And this extra year was I think very hard on him. But again, he did it for the well-being of his colleagues. Colleagues could always go to Lou for support at times, and he disagreed with many of us at times and agreed, as we all do in a family. That's what families do. Across the university, Lou collaborated with other colleagues as well, as I said, for the well-being and expected progress of the institution. He always had the well-being of his colleagues back at home. So personally, I was able to go into his office almost any time and vent, laugh, tell stories, and get support of a well-respected colleague, my friend. I said that we worked together hard. We worked hard together. I worked with Lou on over 80 productions here at USM. He served as producer and director, so he wasn't directing all of them, and I wasn't designing all of them. I served for 14 years as production manager, and on these 80 productions, about 20 of them, I was able to design lighting and or sound. So I worked very, very closely with him. His work in production was intense. It was, in tech. Wow. He loved technical rehearsals, though. He was so focused on bringing all of the elements, the scenic, the sound, lighting, costumes, and the actors, the performers together. I used to marvel at how precise he was moving a prop or a table lamp 2 inches to the left. I'm going, wow. For the first time after my educational and professional work, I felt like a student again. He was a mentor to me. I learned so much from him, so much. My favorite part of this was when we would spend time after the production, the first tech, the next day, which was a designer fix day, and we would come in and adjust lighting cues for hours. We would sit down and go over this. He knew his stuff, and he wanted to share that with everybody, and he did. Yes, he was intense at tech, but it was well intended. He wanted the best out of his shows, out of the students, the designers, and his colleagues. I remember seeing Beth come to almost every first dress that we did a production of. So first dress, if you have done theater, and most of you have, is even more intense sometimes. Well, Beth had a calming effect on the entire room. So thank you, Beth, for that. It was a welcome piece, if you will. We also worked tirelessly on efforts to try to improve technical elements of the department. This is always a task that is hard. Limited budgets hampered these efforts, but we tried, and he never gave up. He knew the success of the department depended on it. We did the best we could, but he was an advocate for improvements, not only in technology, but across the program, across the entire department. He knew that his colleagues needed these improvements and these resources. He fought for his colleagues. On another note, there was no such thing as a 15-minute meeting with Lou. You had better set aside an hour. I remember setting up meetings with him, and he would say, oh, it'll take 15 minutes. And I said to myself, right, let me block off the afternoon. Lou loved to talk with people. He did. He told stories in a way unlike anybody else. Unlike anybody else. If you had a problem, he would also try to solve it with you and spend whatever time needed to do so. He truly cared about his colleagues, his friends. He often buffered the stress of the technical elements with me by saying, hey, in his New York way, I got a great deal on some new equipment. It's in the trunk of my car. Claiming that he was a dealer of lighting equipment out of his car, and he ran the business out of his car. I joke by saying, Lou, you got to stay off the catwalks, man. Why are you trying to sell me my own equipment, our own equipment? So that was much of a stress relief. There's so much more I can say. For the first time in my life, I now own a house. I now own Beth and Lou's house. I got a hell of a deal on it. Thank you, Beth and Lou. Now the hard part. Finish up. Anybody want some of this? I'll sell it for $1. I gotta do this. This is gonna be tough. When I got to the hospice center, the first thing he said to me, I'm gonna take all of the light bulbs and give them a twist and shine the light on everybody. First thing when I walked in the door. Really interesting. He said that it would only be a couple more days before he would pass. He knew. And he was at peace with it. It was a beautiful thing. He told us that it was not goodbye. We would see each other again. So yes, Lou was a colleague, but more so a friend, my best friend. One of the best friends I've ever had in my life. And so I will truly miss our collaborations, the stories, the laughs, the mentorship, lunches, coffee, or for me, a Diet Coke. I will miss our colleagueship. I will miss my friend. Keep on twisting those light bulbs, and may God keep you until I see you again. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I first want to say that I'm honored to stand here in front of all of you and speak about Lou. I feel truly honored to stand here. When I was asked to speak today, I really didn't know what I would have to say. My mind went blank. Up until this morning, I really didn't know what I was going to say to all of you. It's been very difficult this last year, but it's hard to put into words how much someone like Lou means to you. honestly. I've tried my best, so we'll see how this goes. I like to think that Lou knew how much he impacted my life and how much I loved him and looked up to him. I think he knew. I think he knew. When I came to USM for the first time to interview, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was looking at a lot of schools, and USM was the closest in my hometown. But when I met Lou, as we've heard from almost everyone, I felt welcome. I felt like this is where I was meant to be. And Lou wasn't only welcoming. We spent hours and hours and hours in his office just talking about why he loved theater, why I loved theater. And I know almost everyone in this room has probably seen this if you know Lou. When he starts talking about something he is passionate about, his eyes light up. He smiles, or sometimes gets really serious, one or the other. And you just sit there, mesmerized. You don't know what to say. One, because he just keeps talking. And two, because he speaks with such passion and brilliance that you can't help but to pay close attention to it. Since coming to USM, I cherished every single moment with Lou I got. Sometimes it isn't until later in life that you realize how much someone or something meant to you. But with Lou, I knew it. I knew it in the moment. Every meeting we had, every coffee chat, I tried to memorize every single word that he said. But he was able to see people, you know? He really was able to see people. He always made it a point to see the human being in front of him in a way that was so intentional. He really saw them. He looked in their eyes, and he understood the impact of the milk of human kindness in a way that I don't think many people do, whether it's with the cashier at a coffee shop or every single one of his students. He saw them. He made it a point to recognize their humanity, which is a lovely thing. I'm here to speak about Lou as a mentor. Show of hands, who considers Lou a mentor? Yeah. That's amazing, right? Lou has touched so many people's lives in such intimate ways and personal ways. Specifically, the MFA directing program has had a special place in his heart. And he knew something about story, right? He knew a lot about story. We saw it in his work. But I'm not talking about just the story in here. I'm talking about like the journey a group of artists goes on, making a production from beginning to end. That journey he paid close attention to in a very particular way. But he also did the same with his students. He saw where they were at on their journey and was able to offer advice, counsel, a laugh, a coffee, lots of coffee, in a way that you saw how much he cared. You saw how invested he was in everyone's journey that he mentored. It's truly amazing the amount of people's lives touched by Lou. He got to know so many people at a pivotal moment in their lives and challenged them to go further in such a personal way. Me, Matt, and Mia, Sam, all of us would meet with Lou almost every single day in our directing studio, in our classes, and you really get to know a person. Just watching him talk about what he loves will change anyone. Will change anyone. And I know that I am forever changed by Lou. He taught me to trust myself, to challenge myself, to go out and make the world a better place. Lou wasn't the kind of mentor that was distant or met once a month over coffee and offered some vague life lesson while there was still coffee, which was essential to Lou's mentoring style. Lou was much more intentional in his approach. He got to know his mentees on a very personal level. But I don't feel like he ever taught me how to be a good director. He showed me and got me to ask the questions myself. He taught me to value my own artistic voice, to collaborate with other artistic voices. And he pushed me to explore my own well of creativity and push past any self-doubt and to lead with confidence. I think about my final dress of Blithe Spirit that I directed in the Hartwick. There was a tornado that flew right over the school that night. Some of you remember. And for some reason, I don't know why, Beth and Lou were here in his office. And Lou came over to me and told me exactly what to do. He didn't take the reins himself and tell everyone himself. He gave me the reins and said, take everyone into these bombs here that you're sitting above and hunker down. He made everyone feel at peace and at ease, and we had a great time in the bombs, right? We laughed and sang and whatever. This past summer, I directed for SAT Dragons Love Tacos. And Lou was leaving for Wisconsin for this summer and wouldn't be able to see the show. But he came to my stumble through. We went to T-Bones, had some coffee after the stumble through, and he gave me notes about the show. And he said this funny thing. He said he could see my love for Brecht in my work. On Dragons Love Tacos. But I knew what he meant. I knew what he meant. He was able to see what I was passionate about, the things I was interested in, the things that I was challenging myself to find and explore, and he got it. He got it. He saw me trying new things, pushing myself towards things. Later in the lunch, he began to ask me that dreadful question. This was almost a year ago. What am I going to do after graduation? He probably saw the anxiety fill my body, as it still does. And he instead began telling me where he saw me. He began to compliment me, hype me up with kind words and compliments, which I definitely needed to hear. Did I believe him? No. But I could tell he meant it. And Lou didn't just give out compliments, right? If he meant what he said and made sure you were listening, whether you believed it or not. By the end of the lunch, Lou looked at me talking about my own future, where he saw me, my options, and he said with tears in his eyes, I have so much confidence in your future. Who says that? Who says something like that? And he meant it. He cares about all of his mentees, his students, his friends, his colleagues in such a beautiful way. The current MFAs, Matt, Mia, and a few other alums, Sam, you were there, went and visited Lou in hospice. And light was a common theme that day. But his final lesson to us was to keep the light going in our work, not just sometimes, but always. And it's etched in my mind. What does it mean to keep the light going? I've thought about it for a long time now. And it's a call to action. Lou used to always give actors positive notes. He always said, if an actor does 10 things that are, or 9 things that are really bad, and one of them's good, focus on the good one, right? Focus on the positive, keep things positive. Keep exploring that. When a challenge arises, Lou would always tell me, oh, just keep it positive. While Lou and I didn't get to finish time out here together as we planned. I stand here now looking at all of you, and I feel blessed and honored, inspired to keep it going, right? That light that we saw in Lou, fueled by coffee. So my challenge to all of you today is to keep it going. Thank you.
The way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the memory of all that. No, they can't take that away from me. The way your smile just beams, the way you sing off key, the way you haunt my dreams. No, they can't take that away from me. We may never meet again on the bumpy road to love. Still, I'll always keep the memory of the way you hold your knife, the way we danced till 3, the way you've changed my life. No, they can't take that away from me. Sip your tea, the memory of all that. No.
I am honored to read some words from Lou's sister, Shelley. Many of you know Lou as a colleague, professor, mentor, and friend. I thought you might like to know about where Lou evolved from, both personally and professionally. Lou was the eldest child, the big brother for his 2 younger sisters, and always the peacemaker when we would get into an occasional sisterly spat. We grew up in a creative household, and both of our parents were gifted musicians. Dad was a clergyman, a cantor, and the executive director of the local synagogue. Mom was a talented pianist and taught music and chorus in the public school system in Queens, New York. Our home was always filled with live music, with Dad singing and with Mom accompanying him on the piano. Oftentimes, other cantors would come over, and there would be a choir of magnificent voices filling the house. So you can see where Lou's creativity came from. He also inherited wonderful character traits from our parents, including Mom's sweetness and gentle heart, Dad's pragmatic side and great sense of humor, and open-mindedness and kindness from both. We were so fortunate and blessed to have grown up in a happy, loving, and peaceful home that always had an open-door policy for others to come over, eat, and even stay over. Starting out in New York theater after graduate school, Lou was the production stage manager for Joseph Papp's Public Theater, Shakespeare in the Park. There he worked with actors including Meryl Streep, Sam Waterston, and Madonna. He taught at Fordham University in Manhattan and then moved on to become the artistic director at the North Carolina Shakespeare Festival. Finally, he came to the University of Southern Mississippi. Lou was so lucky when he met his soulmate, Beth, who became his life partner. I have always admired how much respect and love that they have shown for each other for the past 37 years. They truly epitomized a happy marriage. Through the years, we have always been so proud of all of Lou's accomplishments, both personally and professionally, and most importantly, the lasting impression that he has always left with those that knew him. He was kind, sensitive, caring, thoughtful, funny, loving, devoted, loyal, hardworking, all the qualities that make up an amazing human being. Let us celebrate him, the fulfilled life that he led, and be grateful that we were touched by his thoughts, his presence, and how he left his footprint on each of our souls. I am certain that Lou is already directing something in the next realm. And for sure, it will be wonderful. Thank you, Shelley.
Hello. Thought I'd have an easy job here. I am Mark Swift, and it is my honor and privilege to speak some words written up by Frank DeFilia, a friend of Lou. Lou and I became friends in 1976 as stage managers at the Public Theater at New York Shakespeare Festival. He was experienced and I was just starting out. He took me under his wing and taught me how to do the job well. He was the only stage manager who would willingly work when Joe Papp was directing, because Joe was very demanding and curt with his stage managers, even though he had been one himself. While doing one of Shakespeare's history plays in the open-air Delacorte Theater, Joe one day said he wanted to have 10 or 15 soldiers march onto the stage, face the audience, and on command shoot arrows clear over their heads and land somewhere outside the theater. Lou told Joe, "You can't do that because..." Reasonable. "You can't do that." Pardon me. Lou told Joe that you can't do that because even though the arrows were blunted, some might hit passersby, and even more likely, some of the actors would not shoot straight and arrows would strike some of the audience members. He suggested Joe face the soldiers upstage, where the arrows would go harmlessly into the lake. Joe reluctantly agreed. Another time in rehearsal with the legendary off-Broadway director Joseph Chaikin, who was not in good health and was directing The Dybbuk, Chaikin turned the actors over to Lou to work with and left not feeling well. Joe came into the rehearsal to check up, and there was Lou and the performers circling around a makeshift grave mourning in a very dramatic manner. Joe inquired what was going on, and Lou told him Chaikin had gone home and left Lou to continue rehearsing with the actors. Joe watched for a while, realized Lou knew what he was doing, gave his approval, and left. One more memory. Years later, Frank produced an original musical of Robin Hood that Lou directed in the high-ceilinged stone basement of the famous Riverside Church in New York. For the climactic sword fight between Robin Hood and the sheriff, Lou had them fight into a corner of the room where they could not be seen by the audience. But they were lit in such a way that they cast 10-foot shadows on the floor and wall. It was like suddenly watching a movie larger than life and nothing short of brilliant. Lewis had the finest character of anyone I have ever known. I loved him dearly, as did everyone who knew him.
Hi, everyone. So I only overlapped with Lou very briefly. He made a very strong impression on me. I knew that it was his intention to retire this year, that this was to be his last year teaching. And even knowing this coming in as a new faculty member, as a new school director, I was very disappointed that I was only going to get that 1 year to overlap with Lou. We had several talks about the theater program, about the history of the program, how special the students are, the needs of the program, the opportunity for creative and transformative work to happen in these spaces. Lou came here as a department chair, and in my role as school director, I really felt like he was also teaching me and downloading a lot of information about what the program needs, how it can move forward, what his experiences have been with the institution in all of the years that he has advocated here. And I was really listening to him. And then without realizing the full extent of his professional background and inspired by these conversations, I remember in one early meeting saying something like, well, it's so great that Hattiesburg doesn't have to go to New York City to see the kind of work you would see at the public theater. Then I learned he had stage managed for Joe Papp. I don't know if he knows I didn't know that in that moment either. Professor Lou Rackoff was a truly great theater artist. I know this, and I never got to see his work. But I know it from meeting his gaze, shaking his hand, and hearing him talk about the theater. And it's interesting to me, too, to hear everything that everyone has shared and how many people have talked about shaking his hand and the kind of eye contact that he made. His artistry was really evident. I was sad to know that he was planning to retire and that our time together here would be brief. And it was a shock and a surprise that we lost him so suddenly. It was not a surprise to see the immediate outpouring of care and concern from generations of students who have been influenced by him and trained by him in their artistry. Lou's legacy in these spaces is visceral. And for me, in thinking about what to share with you in this moment, I was also reminded of a quote, and this is a quote from a dance artist who I love, who's very closely connected to the theater. And Isadora Duncan wrote, "I believe in each life is a spiritual line, an upward curve. All that adheres to this and strengthens it is our real life. The rest is but chaff falling from one's progress. Such a spiritual line is my art." I like to think about Lou's legacy in the spaces in that way. Theater theorist Marvin Carlson writes about ghosts and the haunted qualities of theater spaces. Theaters carry the spirits and stories and human experiences of those who came before us. They have a unique relationship to time. And these theaters, our Woods Theater, the Hartwig, and this Tatum Theater, have been indelibly marked by Lou's storytelling and his presence. I'm honored to share with you today that Professor Lou Rackoff has been acknowledged by the University of Southern Mississippi with Professor Emeritus status. And the emeritus designation is awarded only to faculty members who have served the University of Southern Mississippi with distinction for an extended period of time. Here, in the School of Performing and Visual Arts, we are also honoring Lou in multiple ways. The foundation established a giving fund in his name, but here in the Tatum Theater, we're also, our own Jay Morris is making a plaque so that we can designate the seat that Lou sat in when he directed. So Lou, we are saving a seat for you for every single show, and we look forward to having you as part of our audience to bear witness. So thank you all so much for coming and celebrating Lou with us today. And we hope you stay and enjoy some refreshments and sign the guest book. And that's all we have to share today, so thank you.